I knew our marriage was in trouble the first time my wife angled her face away from me to unlock her phone. It was 2 weeks after our honeymoon, still sand in the corners of our suitcase, and she said we shouldn't train together anymore because she needed to protect her focus. I heard an engine rev under those words. It wasn't mine. We'd spent 7 days in Barbados pretending the rest of our lives didn't exist. We floated in hotel pools glowing like lanterns, fell asleep in sunscreen and salt, and took pictures that made our skin look like honey. When we flew back to Boston, the city felt like a gray towel laid over a bright dream. Snow rims lined the back bay curbs. I was back behind my screen at the hospital system, running models about infection clusters and readmission risk. She was back in leggings, a coach voice, and a neat ponytail pulled so tight it looked like she'd tied a knot in her own thoughts. "Let's do a Saturday-long run on the Esplanade," I said, peeking over her shoulder at the calendar app we used to share before she changed the settings. "I need to train alone," Brooke said. "I'm rebuilding flow, no chatter." I swallowed the part where I wanted to say, "I don't chatter." I carry silence around like a backpack. It wasn't a fight, just a small adjustment like moving a picture frame a quarter inch. But then there was the phone. The face that had pressed into my neck on warm nights now turned away in cold little angles whenever that black slab vibrated. "Face ID," she said once when I noticed. "It helps me stay off grid with clients." She said it like she was protecting a sacred practice from my clumsy hands. I didn't push. I went back to my spreadsheets and let her go to the expensive studios that smell like eucalyptus and confidence. "Daniel, you're boring," she told me one night when I tried to tell her a story about a model that overfit. "Like your models. I can't have your noise in my head before class." I nodded and rinsed plates at 10 o'clock, trying to set them into the rack without clacking, like plates made sound suddenly. I washed her shaker bottle and tried not to see the faint half moon of lipstick on the rim. It wasn't that she never wore lipstick, she just didn't wear it to lift weights. I told myself, this is married life settling into its stride. 2 runners, different paces. She started building her own little solar system of clients in Back Bay, all of them in sharp leggings and rapt attention, all of them brunch after class and selfies with coffee foam hearts on Newbury Street. I wanted to be happy for her. I was, mostly. But when she came home, the air changed, like a door opening to cold. She put her phone screen down on the counter. She smiled with only the top half of her face. She slept longer than she ever had. If I reached for her, she rolled away, murmuring about preserving energy. The first bump in the road looked like a tiny notification on my phone. Our shared credit card pinged at 11:47 p.m., a boutique studio in Back Bay, not her usual place, not at that hour. I told myself it was a booking for later, some auto charge. I poured myself water and realized 2 wine glasses were drying upside down in the rack from the night before. We didn't drink wine that night. I would have remembered. The second glass was clean, like it had been scrubbed for inspection. "Did you have someone over?" I asked, as gently as a hand on a cat's back. "A client grabbed a training plan," she said, not looking up from her phone. "We had tea. It's allowed to be normal, Daniel. Not everything is a thing." I could almost hear my therapist, who I saw twice in grad school and never again, saying, "You can ask a second question, Daniel." But my voice stayed in my chest. I told myself not to bring lab energy into love. I told myself to stay kind. A week later, I woke to a strange thing. My Apple Watch pulsed, showing a health-sharing notification from Brooke's account, a workout tracked at 1040 a.m. I blinked, stared, and for a second thought maybe my watch was haunted. "Who runs at 1014 in a Boston winter?" I asked her in the morning over eggs. "Burpees," she said, making it sound like a spell. I couldn't sleep. I did a circuit to burn it out. "You got your heart rate to 161 doing burpees at 1 in the morning?" I said, before I could stop myself. She cracked pepper slow and steady and set the grinder down like a judge setting a gavel. "I'm a trainer," she said. "I know my body. Please don't monitor me like a patient." The word monitor burned. I apologized 3 times. I took out the trash, swept salt from the mat, and carried a cardboard box to the recycling room just to be out of the kitchen when my guilt got too loud. On a Sunday, when I thought she was teaching a morning class, I took the T to Copley to buy a book for a student I mentored. The air in the Prudential Center smelled like pretzels and new clothes. On my way out, I saw Brooke through the glass wall of a juice place. She stood with 2 women I didn't know. Her ponytail was perfect. She laughed with her whole body the way she used to. I lifted a hand. She didn't see me. Her phone lit. In the reflection, I could see the way she turned her face from them, from the whole room, to catch her Face ID. Something in me said that's not protection. That's hiding. I went home and baked salmon and waited. When she came in, she hugged me like a teammate. Her hair smelled like someone else's cologne. My chest felt like a drawer being closed too hard. "How was class?" I asked. "Full and focused," she said. "What's for dinner?" "Salmon." I tried on a smile that didn't fit. Under the salmon tray in the sink, I found a paper receipt from a hotel bar near Copley Square. 2 glasses of wine, a cheese plate, time-stamped at exactly the hour her studio app said she was teaching. I stood there with the damp paper in my hand like it was a test I hadn't studied for. I heard myself laugh, a thin, surprised sound. Then I folded the receipt and slid it under a magnet on the side of our fridge. I didn't say a word. I wanted to see what happened to evidence in the wild. The next morning, the magnet held nothing. The receipt was gone. The space where it had been looked like a missing tooth. I told myself our marriage wasn't a lab and I wasn't a detective, and she didn't owe me a GPS log of her day. I told myself that if people look for evidence long enough, they find a story that isn't there. I told myself all the kind, rational things. Then I glanced at the dishwasher and saw 2 more wine glasses flipped on the top rack, catching the light like domes. I cracked first, but I cracked quiet. "Are we okay?" I asked one night when she was scrolling and I was rinsing the same plate for too long. She looked up like I'd interrupted a movie. "We're fine," she said. "We're newlyweds. Get used to your life. You can't bring me every anxious molecule you grow in that computer." "It's data," I said before I could help it. "It's data about us." She rolled her eyes. "Your problem is you think life is a model. It's not. It's flow. Please stop making me feel analyzed." "I'm trying to understand you," I said. "I want to meet you where you are." "Meet me by not needing so much," she said, and went back to her phone. After that, I closed the open tabs in my head and told myself to start a different kind of experiment. I joined a volunteer run club that met in the South End on Tuesdays, people in reflective jackets running along Tremont while trash trucks hummed. I ran slow, then a little faster. I looked up adjunct openings and found a course at a local college that needed someone to teach intro to biostatistics. I applied with a letter that tried harder than I had in years. When they emailed back, yes, I started crying into my scarf at a bus stop. On a Friday in late March, the neighbor texted me a security clip because he thought there might have been a package taken by accident from our stoop. The clip showed a black car idling. Brooke stepped out, hair messy, hoodie raised. A man got out the other side and walked behind her like he knew the house. He wore a knit cap and a beard that looked expensive. They were only in the frame for a second, 2 shadows sliding across our door, but my stomach made a small, cold fist. That night, when she said she was going to the studio to prep for a sunrise class, I texted a friend and said, "Tell me I'm not going crazy." He wrote back, "You're not crazy, but being right is not the point. Taking care of yourself is." It sounded like a line from a poster in a therapist's office. It also sounded true. I started noticing the small things people always say they notice. The faint scent of a citrus cologne, not mine, on our entryway bench. The echo in the house when she wasn't there. The way she would shower at odd times and put her clothes straight into the washer like she was laundering more than cotton. Her Instagram stories went up with stickers and timestamps that didn't match the shadows in the photos. She said she'd been at Spin Lab at 6 a.m., but in the photo of oatmeal, the light came in low from the west like a late afternoon. I almost heard a judge in my head again. "Your witness, Mr. Data." But I didn't want to be a detective anymore. I wanted to be a husband who wasn't begging. I made one tactical mistake. On a Sunday morning, I asked if she wanted to run the 5-miler on the Charles with me like we used to before sunrise. Worship switched from the river to her reflection in studio mirrors. "I don't do hobby runs anymore," she said, tightening her shoe like she was strangling it. "I train." "Everything with you is performance," I said softly. "Where did we go?" She looked at me long enough for the air to thin. "People change," she said. "Accept it." The first real fight arrived late one night with April rain smacking the windows. I put 3 things on the kitchen counter, like exhibits: the hotel bar receipt, a screenshot of the health notification that showed her midnight workout like a siren, and a charge from a ride share to an address on Marlborough Street, time stamped 2 in the morning. "Talk to me," I said. "Just talk to me like I'm your person." She stood there in sweatpants, jaw tight, and stared at the items like they were a language she had forgotten. Then she laughed, a small bark, and shook her head. "This is why I can't breathe," she said. You build walls out of trivia and call it truth. I got a late drink with a client. I did a quick circuit because I couldn't sleep. I shared a car because it was raining. None of this is a courtroom." Who is he? I said. There wasn't rage in my voice. There was something older. A friend, she said with a shrug that made me feel like a child asking for the name of a cloud. Do you want our marriage? I asked. I want my life to be the way it's supposed to be, she said. What about us? She pressed her palms to the cool gray stone of the kitchen island. Then she looked at me like she'd rehearsed a line. Daniel, I never wanted you, she said, and the house quivered like a violin string. I wanted stability. That's what you are, a safe thing. You know what I figured out 6 years ago? That I need drive. I need someone who puts my heart into overdrive. I dated someone back then for 3 months just to test, and I felt alive. I need that. You make me feel patted. The room rotated. I gripped the counter because my legs didn't trust the floor. Outside, a siren threaded through the rain like a bad violinist. I left myself out of our life so you could be happy, I said quietly. I tried to be air. And I need wind, she said. Why did you marry me? The words were rocks in my throat. Because you were the right decision, she said. Because my mother loved you. Because I was tired of chaos. Because you loved me so gently, I didn't have to wrestle with anything. You were a good plan. I'm not a plan, I said. I'm a person. She looked down, and for a flicker, I saw the girl who used to fall asleep with her mouth open on my shoulder and wake up laughing like she'd dreamed a joke. Then she straightened, smoothed her hoodie, and the trainer came back. I'm sure your models can tell you the probability we survive this, she said. Stop using my work like something to beat me with, I said. My voice was steady now. I know how to be precise. I also know when something is broken. What do you want to do? She said. The question was a formality, like signing where it says sign. I'm going to get a place for a while, I said. I'll leave you the house for now. We'll talk about the rest when we're not trying to set each other on fire. You're leaving? She sounded surprised, as if the performance had gone off script. I'm choosing dignity, I said, and air. Don't make this dramatic, she said. It already is, I said, picking up my car keys. I'll be fine, she said, and her voice was all steel. I know, I said. I hope I will be too. I packed a bag in 10 minutes. Hoodie, jeans, 2 shirts, running shoes. I took my toothbrush and looked at it in my palm like a white flag. I stood in our doorway and held onto the frame, remembering a night 2 years earlier when we carried in a thrifted dresser and laughed so hard we had to sit on the stairs because the drawers kept sliding out onto our legs. Then I stepped into the rain. The studio I found in the South End was above a bakery that opened at 5 and made the whole street smell like buttered hope. The apartment was a rectangle with a window that faced brick and sky. The paint was clean. The radiator clanged sometimes like someone was knocking from inside the wall. I slept on an air mattress the first week and then on a cheap couch the second. I hung nothing. I set my running shoes by the door. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I met the run club at dusk. We set out along Tremont past the lit-up restaurants and the dog walkers trying to manage tangled leashes. The group was a mix of students, nurses, a barista, and a man who worked nights doing maintenance in a museum. We jogged down to the Charles some nights and watched crews cut water in the dark like knives. People told small pieces of their lives between breaths. It felt like church if church could make you sweat in the good way. No one asked me why I ran. I ran because my body needed to remember it had a heart that wasn't just a number on a screen. I started teaching the Intro to Biostatistics class on Wednesdays. The students were smart and distracted in equal parts. I told them models weren't magic, just good guesses. I told them a clean data set is a love letter to your future self. They laughed sometimes. I stood at the front of the room with a marker that smelled like a marker and remembered that I knew how to explain things. On a Saturday morning about a month after I moved out, I went back to the old house with a friend to pick up a trunk of books. Brooke wasn't home. The fridge hummed like a tired animal. Inside it sat a carton of egg whites, a container of spinach, and a jar of olives. Nothing else. I stood looking at the emptiness and felt a kind of calm. It wasn't my job to put color back into a life that wanted black and white. That afternoon, I ran with the club and ended up next to a woman named Layla who wore a baseball cap pulled low. She was a social worker who volunteered at a crisis center and sometimes handed out water in neon cups at races. She didn't ask me for my story. She talked about her clients with respect. She told me she loved the way runners nod to each other like they're saying, "Keep going, stranger, I see you." We stopped at a light and bounced in place, and she grinned at me like we were both 12. Teaching makes you stand taller, she said out of nowhere. You look lighter than the first week you came. I am, I said, surprised to hear it and to realize it was true. On a rainy Monday night in June, Brooke texted me. Can we talk? I stared at the dots as if they were medical scans. I told her I'd meet her at the house because it was neutral. She stood in the kitchen with her hair in a low knot and her phone face down on the counter like a sleeping dog. The island looked the same. It was where we'd set Joy once, and groceries and rings. Her shoulders were high up near her ears. "How are you?" she asked, like a person making small talk with a cashier. "I'm okay," I said. "I'm running more, I'm teaching." "That's good," she said. "I joined a new studio. It's intense." I waited. "Wait!" "I thought it would feel like freedom," she said finally. "It feels like a treadmill." "I'm sorry," I said, "and I meant it. I think you believed you had to choose between air and wind. Maybe that was never the real question." "I'm not asking to get back together," she said. "I just wanted you to know I didn't do this because you were bad. You were good. You are good." "I know," I said. "Good isn't always a match. That's not failure. It's a classification problem we mislabeled for a while." She smiled a tired smile. "I'll miss how you make everything sound like science, but somehow gentle." "I'll miss the way you laughed in your sleep," I said, "because it was true." She put her hand on the counter and took it away. "I'm sorry for the way I said it that night," she said. "What I meant was I was afraid. I grabbed the first thing that looked like a boat, and then I looked for a sail." "I hope you find one," I said. "You already did," she said, looking at my face like a mirror. "You're less padded." We made a plan about the house and the money like people whose names still lived in the same envelopes. I left with a folder under my arm, and the strange piece of a scene played all the way through. In July, the bakery downstairs started selling a lemon bar so good it made me forget my fate for whole minutes. I ran farther. I let myself look up at the sky more often, even though Boston always seems to be taking attendance with its weather. I learned the names of 3 dogs on my block. I slept deeply twice a week and woke up grateful. I drank coffee on my stoop and waved at the mail carrier as if we had a tradition. Leela and I became friends, then almost something else. Then we both slowed down on purpose because patience felt like an adult muscle we both wanted to learn to use. In September, my class surprised me with a card. "We love the way you explain odds," one wrote in loopy letters, "and how you never make us feel dumb." I put the card on my tiny table, and it looked like a flag on the moon. A year after the night at the island, I saw Brooke on Newberry Street with a client. She looked like a photograph of herself. She was laughing. The client was laughing. The sun was bright in that mean Boston way that makes everything look close. Brooke saw me and raised her chin in a hello that was not small and not large. She mouthed, "You look good." I mouthed, "You too." It wasn't a scene. It was a nod between people who had walked through a room full of glass and come out the other side with their feet bandaged and still working. Back at my studio, I opened my fridge. It had eggs and milk and blueberries and a container of leftover pasta I'd made too salty. I stood smiling at my domestic mediocrity. I texted the Run Club to ask who was in for a long one on Saturday. I marked a quiz for my students and wrote a margin note that said, "I love how you thought about this. Keep going." I watched rain drag itself across the brick outside my window like an old dog, and I realized something that felt like the click of a seatbelt. She loved the picture of a life. She loved the way it looked on a screen, in a mirror, in the faces of women who wanted to be her, in the eyes of men who wanted to orbit that light. She loved what stability bought her, which was quiet to choose chaos later. She did not love me, and I did not love her. Not the person she was, not in the end. I'd loved an idea too. We'd both married images and forgot to introduce them to the breathing people. Here is what I know now. Someone loving a lifestyle is not someone loving you. Stability is not the enemy, and drive is not the savior. You can run toward your life and still end up in the same place if you never look up at the road. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is to set down the weight of being their plan. On that first cold night in the South End, I lay on my air mattress and listened to the radiator bang a metal heartbeat. I thought I would break into pieces. Instead, the pieces settled into new shapes. They still do. On Tuesdays, when we cross the bridge and the river lies dark and honest, someone always says, "Almost there," and it makes me want to laugh and cry at the same time. Almost there is the truth. Almost there is where life happens. The rest is just finish lines that look like starts. Did I think about texting Brooke sometimes when I saw something funny or felt something sharp? Yes. Did I picture the man in the beanie walking behind her like a ghost and wish him the emptiness of a perfect fridge? I did, but the smell of butter at 5 a.m. and the way my students lifted their pens when I said this might be on the test healed me in small, regular ways. The work of running is not running away, it's running into yourself over and over until you stop wanting to turn. A year out, the new people in my life don't know the story unless I tell them. I tell it less now. It stopped needing a stage. Sometimes, like today, I think of the island, the cold one with the gray slab and the words on it that cut me clean. Then I think of the bakery where the lemon bars go fast and the way the woman behind the counter says, "You got here at the right time." And I think, yes, finally, maybe I did. Two questions for you. If someone told you exactly what Brooke told me, would you leave that night? Or would you wait for the storm to pass first? And how much proof do you need before you choose yourself over a pretty picture? If you want more stories like this, like, comment, and subscribe. It helps more than you think.